Shalom, Ka'ala Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Ruach double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, who are the house of David reborn again in this generation. And Shalom to the 130 Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing their true heritage were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about Esau's stance as far as staying in Syria and how that is going to eventually lead to Armageddon. But let's read this first. This is Joel 3:2. I will also gather all nations, and I will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will plead with them there for my people, and for mine heritage Israel, whom they have scattered amongst the nation, and parted my land. So recently, it looked, actually just today, you've had the Biden administration take a stance, right, with this whole going back and forth as far as pulling troops out of the Middle East. They've come out officially and said that they will not be pulling out troops out of Syria, right? And why is that? Well, you see, Syria is right above the valley of Jehoshaphat, okay? When you look at the map for the area, this is Syria, okay? And the valley of Jehoshaphat, for example, here in this red line, this is the Temple Mount, okay? Valley of Jehoshaphat runs right through here. Also Megiddo, which is also the place where where it's prophesied that Armageddon is going to happen, is right in here. So for the most part, the Lord is keeping the main player, right, these Edomites, on the stage of battle. Okay, he's making sure that they do not leave from this area. And what is that going to do? Well, that's going to only increase the military population there in this area, man. Because right now, if you've been following the military buildup, there is a big tension in the country Syria right now. And for the most part, America is fighting a proxy war against Russia. Okay? And they're doing this what appears to be an escalating standoff, which will not cool off, and which will eventually, which we know by reading the Bible, that it will eventually lead to World War III, right, or Armageddon. Right? This is biblical that this is all happening. But let's go ahead and read this article and just get a little details about what makes Esau so prideful that he wants to stay in Syria, though he's pulling out of the rest of the Middle East. The article says, Biden administration plans to keep troops in Syria indefinitely. Let's take a look at that term, indefinitely. Indefinitely, for an unlimited or unspecified period of time. Right? See, these devils, they don't want to leave Syria. And why is that? Because, you see, the true rulers of America and the people who pretty much, you know, dictate where its military is going to go, they actually dwell in the land of Israel right now, right? You see, in the land of Israel right now are dwelling the top tribe of the nation of Edom, right? They are known as the Amalekites, or the world today refer to them as the so-called Jews, right? They call them just the Jews, but they are in fact the Edomites, right? That the Bible prophesied would be ruling the world before the second coming of the Messiah. Now, that being said, the heads of the nation of Edom, for the most part, reside within Israel. Okay, they are, and this is why Israel, which is a secret nuclear power, right, has for the most part surrounded itself by its allies, right? And namely America, right? It is using America's military to basically conquer the surrounding areas. There's a video from 2004 or something like that, where General Wesley Clark, spills the beans, and he explains how the U.S. after the 9/11 attacks had already plans drawn up on how they were going to go into 7 countries and around the Middle East and conquer them all, and that the last country would ultimately be Iran, which is Israel's #1 enemy, right? And why is that? Well, you see, the Iranians understand that the so-called Jews that are dwelling in the land of Israel right now are not the true Jews, and they actually understand that they are the liberators of Israel, right? Meaning that the Lord is going to use them to destroy the Amalekites, the Edomites that are dwelling in the land of Israel, just how he used them back in the time of the Babylonian Empire to bring the Babylonians down, right? But let's continue with the article. It says, as the U.S. is pulling troops out of Afghanistan and changing its mission in Iraq, a Biden administration official made it clear in comments to Politico that there are no plans to pull troops out of Syria. I don't anticipate any changes right now to the mission or the footprint in Syria, the official said, who spoke on the conditions of anonymity. There are currently about 900 U.S. troops in northeast Syria, right? And that number is only going to increase, right? Why do you think they're pulling out the troops out of these other countries? Because they are going to regroup and get ready for a larger invasion force there in Syria. Continuing, in Syria, we're supporting Syrian Democratic Forces in their fight against ISIS. They've been quite successful, and that's something that will continue, the official continued. And again, if you understand the proxy war that's going on right now over in Syria, America is for the most part holding up, or buffeting up the Syrian Democratic Forces, right? And they're doing it because the other, I think it's ISIS, or actually just the Syrian government, Russia is holding them up, right? And the thing is that you got America and Russia fighting in the background, right? And Syria is basically the grass that is being trodden under the 2 big elephants that are fighting, right? And that ultimately is going to be the story of all that area there, right? Because you're going to have a major war breakout. It's continuing. It says, while the U.S. claims its presence in Syria is to help fight ISIS, the region where the U.S. troops are deployed is where most of the country's oil fields are, right? There you go. The true reason why these devils are over there, man. The occupation keeps the vital resources out of the hands of the Syrian government, which is part of the Washington's economic warfare against the country, right? And you see that, and why is the U.S. government against the Syrian government? Because the Syrian government is an ally to the Russians, right? And they are trying to basically destroy the Syrians, right? They tried to get that guy al-Assad, right, the president, out over there in I think there was like a failed coup. Well, I think actually it was up in Turkey where there was a failed coup, but ultimately it came down to the controlling of Syria, right? But that failed, and now Turkey is for the most part an enemy of the U.S. now. But the point being is that these devils, they're ultimately over there to gain control of the region, right? And ultimately it's based around securing the resources there. Continuing. The U.S. maintains crushing economic sanctions on Syria. The sanctions specifically target the enemy and construction sectors, making it difficult for the country to rebuild after 11 years of war and exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. According to the UN, the number of Syrians that are close to starvation is at 12.4 million, and 60% of the population. On Monday, President Biden announced that the U.S. combat mission in Iraq would be coming to an end, but U.S. troops will remain in the country. There are currently 2,500 U.S. troops in Iraq, and it's not clear if any will be removed as Washington changes its mission to a strictly advisory one. Multiple media reports cited anonymous U.S. officials who said changes to troop levels in Iraq would be minimal. One reason the U.S. wants to hold on to its bases in Iraq is that they support the occupation forces in Syria. So you see, these devils, these Edomites, man, they understand what's going on, man. They know that they are coming up against, Russia, Iran, and China, right? And they are positioning themselves to fight against them, right? And that's biblical prophecy. This is Psalms 10:5. His ways are always grievous, like judgments are far out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. He hath said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. Right? His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. In the secret places doth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. Right? Just giving a rundown of the characteristics of these Edomites, man. Right? But the point is in verse 5, right? That he puffeth at his enemies. Right? That he's basically always making them flinch, man. He's always showing off that he is the top dog, right? And that's the reason why China and Russia are holding a large military exercise. It says over 10,000 troops to take part in major joint China-Russia war drills. China Defense Ministry on Thursday unveiled that the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, military is set to host major joint military drills with Russia in early August to include more than 10,000 troops from both countries in China's Ningxia Autonomous Region in the north-central part of the country. That's basically in central China. And here's the point, man. The purpose of this exercise is to consolidate and develop a comprehensive strategic partnership of cooperation between China and Russia. Right? And here's it says, Defense Ministry spoke Wu Zhang announced in a press briefing. Right? And why is that? You see, because this is prophecy, man. This is prophecy that Russia would ultimately be a guard to these other nations who are going to stand up against Babylon the Great, America. Let's read this right, because I want to get this one point. At the moment, both countries are experiencing deteriorating relationships with the United States, right? And that right there is the Lord ultimately putting a monkey wrench in these Edomites' plan, man. Even though, Russia are Edomites, right? That's that prophecy that says that the Lord would cause Satan's house to fight against itself, man. That the Satan's house would be divided, right? And it says, including Beijing increasingly in the sanctions tit-for-tat battle with Washington over Hong Kong. The spokesman additionally said it will also further demonstrate the determination and ability for both sides to combat terrorist forces and jointly maintain regional peace and security. That's basically a bunch of fluff. They're ultimately getting ready for World War III. Russia, for its part, is currently in a standoff. Here's the point I wanted to read. Russia, for its part, is currently in a standoff with the U.S. over cyber attack allegations and threats. President Biden actually said in a speech this week that potentially a future cyber attack scenario could end up in a real shooting war with a major power. No doubt he had primarily Russia and China in mind. Right? So there you go. So basically a real shooting war with major powers. See, this is ultimately the the reason why they're all building up their forces and why they're moving the militaries of these large nations into the Middle East area, man. You know, you got China, Russia, they're practicing for this coming World War III, right? You have the Lord, you know, he's moving all the chess pieces around, right? And it's time for you to realize what's going on. Like, this is all biblical, man, right? The pushing of the jab, which eventually is going to lead to the MOTB, right? The coming ever closer to World War III, which is spoken about here. It says Revelations 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly, right? And that's the key word right there, man. Cometh quickly, right? Because you see, war is going to break out with no, you know, warning, right? They're not going to, you know, have it like it is on these news reports, right? Saying like, you know, next week coming up, you know, the war. No, that ain't going to happen, man. One day you're just going to wake up and you're going to hear about a news report about how Russia, you know, basically, or America attacked Russian forces, and that Russian forces basically attacked back because the nation of Israel went and attacked them, right? Because it tells you in the prophecy that the least of the flock shall draw them out, meaning that, you know, though they're in Syria, they're building up in Syria, ultimately there's going to be something that the so-called Jews, the Israelis, are going to do that is going to kick all this off. So like I said again, there's going to be one day when you wake up and you're going to hear about these, you know, just major bombings over there and how war has, for the most part, started, man. And that's how it's going to happen. Let's see, this is Isaiah 55 and 6. Seek ye Yahweh Bashim Ashai while he may be found. Call ye upon him while he is near. Right? And that's the thing, Akim. This is the point of this whole lesson, man. We are getting close to the end, man. If you are, you know, still on the fence, still just, you know, learning, man, you got to really start, you know, putting the pedal to the metal, and you got to start, you know, at least understanding the true name of the Lord. You got to get right as best as you can, because, you know, we are living in those last minutes of the last days, right? So hopefully, you know, this was a nice update on the events that are going down over there in the Middle East, right? So, you know, things are about to pop off, Akim. So until the next time, I want to give all praises to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Ruach Kodash, the Lord is my teachers, the apostles and elders, great millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect. Shalom.